I'm project manager. I'm senior research associate and project manager at the Lisbon Council. And I'm really thrilled to be the moderator today for this very first LibrarIN Reimagine Libraries Roundtable discussion, an important discussion on sparking collaboration for innovation to tackle libraries' 21st century challenges, our very first policy brief of this project. So first, a few housekeeping rules. So you will have noticed that you're all muted. That is to really be able to pay attention to what our speakers have to say today. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to hear from you. We would love to hear any comments, any questions that you may have. Please add them to the chat, and we will try to get round to them in the policy roundtable discussion. Just to let you know that we are really happy to say that 95 people registered for this roundtable discussion from 17 countries, mostly Europe, but also from America, Asia, and Africa. So welcome, everyone. 45% of those people registered indicated that they're from libraries, 21% are from research and academia, 7% are policymakers, and 4% are from citizen associations. So just a quick overview of what's ahead of us today. In 90 minutes, we're trying to tackle a lot of topics. So Anna Triantafilu, the LibrarIN coordinator and head of the Innovation Lab at the Athens Technology Center, will take us through a LibrarIN in a nutshell. Then Luis Rubalcaba, professor in economic policy at the University of Alcalá, will take us through Reimagine Libraries policy brief, and then we'll dive into the policy roundtable discussion. So for now, without further ado, Anna, can you take the floor?
Yes, thank you very much. Also, I'm glad to have you all here, all of you here today, and I'd like to thank you for your participation. I represent Athens Technology Center, which is a software house based in Greece, and we are responsible for the coordination and the technical implementations of the project, as well as we participate on the research activities. So what I would like to do in these next few minutes is just to give you a short overview of what LibrarIN is trying to achieve so far. As Marieke said, this is our first meeting. More policy briefs will follow within the next period, and more policy events will be organized. So I really hope that this presentation and this information flow is useful for all of you, and that we will be able to have fruitful discussions within the next period. So LibrarIN, from the title, you can understand that this is a project about libraries. It's mainly focused on libraries. It is an Horizon Euro project, 100% funded by the European Commission. Next slide, please. The main motivation behind LibrarIN, or the rationale for this project was actually to address the several challenges that libraries are facing today. And talking about the challenges, we can say, and you know better than me, that we are talking about the limited resources, the cultural diversity, the rapid technological changes, the complex community dynamics and demands, and at the same time, all this, let's say, outdated perception of what is the role of the library today. Therefore, in our project, what we are trying to do, or where we focus on, is to explore new methods of participatory management for the European libraries, with a focus on European libraries. And our goal is to explore how libraries can expand their roles, how libraries can enhance their public services in order to address real needs, how libraries can engage more effectively and more deeply with the communities they serve. The outcome of this exercise is actually to provide practical and managerial and, say, policy recommendations based on solid empirical evidence in order to increase the value of library services for the society, for the wider society. Next slide, please. So therefore, the way to achieve this is by, let's say, having 6 main steps or 6 main objectives that drive our our project implementation. The first 3 steps are mainly related to the research-related objectives, whether the last 3 steps are mainly related to the impact-related activities. So starting from the first one, which is actually the provision of the holistic theoretical framework that actually puts the baseline for the research activities of the project. Here, what we try to do is to explore 3 key aspects of value co-creation and service innovation in libraries. We try to understand the nature and the characteristics, the modes of organization and implementation, and the impact. At the same time, we try to measure and monitor innovation within the public libraries at the European level. And we start this research by collecting existing data from previous surveys. And I can say here that we didn't manage to find a lot about that. So it means that not many surveys have been actually focused on libraries innovation or on innovation projects within libraries and co-creation. And at the same time, we have defined new metrics in order to be able to monitor this transformation. So in this survey, that is a European survey, what we try to do is to analyze how co-creation activities occur within the libraries. What are the roles of the different stakeholders or different partners that are involved in these innovative projects? What are the factors that actually explain success and failure? And at the end of the day, what is the social impact of all these innovation projects? At the same time, we focus on the empirical work and a more qualitative-based analysis, trying to analyze existing cases. And here we focus on specific thematic areas on value co-creation with a focus on digital services, living labs, and social entrepreneurship. So these 3, as I said, are the steps that put the research baseline. On the other hand, the last 3, the main scope of this project is to create sustainable impact for libraries, policy, and practice. So this is actually achieved by collaborating closely with a group of a group of stakeholders. So far, we work with more than 35 stakeholders from 19 European countries that comes from the libraries ecosystem, from the academic world, and from the policy making side. And what we try to do here is to transform and translate, let's say, these research results into actionable recommendations for decision makers, for policy makers, for practitioners. At the same time, we set up, and shortly we will release a data-based tracking system in order to be able to assess the transformation of libraries through innovation projects across EU member states. And finally, we work towards a sustainability model that will be able to sustain the research outcomes after the end of the project in order to maximize the impact of our project achievements. Next slide, please. Therefore, if I try to summarize, let's say, how the work of LibrarIN project is organized, I would say that all this is organized around 6 main work packages that build on 3 main pillars. The first pillar, it has to do, as I said, with the theoretical research, with the theoretical framework and the metrics. So here we provide the theoretical framework in order to understand value co-creation and service social innovation within libraries. The second pillar has to do with the thematic and the empirical work that actually provides solid evidence on the selected co-creation areas. And the whole idea around this is to redirect the service library design and implementation away from an internal logic towards a more human-centered design approach that actually moves the citizen or the user into the center of the design process. And finally, the collaboration with the stakeholders and policy recommendations with the aim to create this information sharing and knowledge flows between the research community, the practitioners, and the policy community in order to ensure sustainable impact. Last slide from my side, just to remind you who we are. We are a team of 10 partners coming from 9 European countries with different backgrounds and expertise in innovation and co-creation. So in the consortium participate companies, think tanks, library organization, research organizations and universities. And of course, we are the baseline, we are the main team, and on top of that, we have a community of practitioners and stakeholders that actually support our work and contribute for the delivery and the results of for the delivery of the project results. So that's all from my side. I hope you enjoy the rest of the presentation today.
Thank you very much, Anna. This was really interesting to have a quick run through what LibrarIN aims to do. Now, I would like to open the floor to Professor Luis Rubalcaba, who is the scientific coordinator of the LibrarIN project and has led the work on the literature review basis for this policy brief. The floor is yours, Luis. I think you're muted.
Yes. Now, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Thank you. Can you also see the presentation?
We can see the slides, but not yet in presentation mode.
Okay. Let's try to do it in presentation mode. Okay.
Excellent. Perfect.
Very good. So thank you very much for organizing this, Marieke, and all the rest of the colleagues at the LibrarIN project. It's a pleasure to be here just to present what we have prepared for this first policy brief under this very nice title of Reimagine Libraries. No? So I'm going just to be very brief. I will just give you some key insights of what we have been doing. You have the policy brief yourself, so you can just read it when you can. Maybe some of you already read it. So there are three main sections in the policy brief. So we start with the kind of rationale. Then we have what we collect about from the literature review. So we analyze different documents and a lot of papers and books, etc. So to produce some results based on evidence. And then we have the final section really with the policy implications or recommendations that we are going to discuss mostly later on in this session. So just for the first rationale, I will only just have three ideas. The first one is that if we are going to get a visual of what should be these reimagined libraries, okay, we all have the vision and the visual of a traditional library like this one on the left, that is full of books, a nice library. What we have now, thinking about a new concept of libraries, is not that much books. It's not that much a book-centered library, but it's a more people-centered library. Doesn't mean that the previous one didn't have people behind, because behind each of the books there were people writing the books. So what is common is that both libraries, the old ones and the new ones, have knowledge and people behind. But what is new is really that the innovations that are happening in libraries now are promoting interactions, lively interactions between people, between agents, between, like you have also in the other picture on the left. Of course, some of them can also be very nice buildings. Like, for example, last time we had a meeting in Helsinki and we had a great visit to the Audi library. And we had also nice building as well, with a lot of interaction between people and with some books as well, of course, with a lot of books as well. But the idea is that this transition between all books-oriented libraries to new ones, this is the starting point for our project. And then another thing, the rationale is that when going into how to improve services, how to put the efficiency and the capacity of libraries to provide new things, we realized that there is a need of alignment between the societal needs and the librarian and library needs. So it's not that library going one direction and the society goes in a different direction. So I think that now are getting along these societal moves and the library moves, although the changes in society are really affecting so much everything that libraries are really to some extent catching up or sometimes leading some of the changes. And this is the thing we want to stress here, and this is the key part of the library, and some of the European documents also are supporting this idea of aligning between societal needs and library needs. In this context, collaboration is a key topic. As Anna was presenting the project, this project is not just about innovation, it's innovation and collaboration. So collaboration is understood now as a strategic choice in order to improve the quality of the services provided by librarians and the efficiency of those services as well. So this is what is the rationale. Then the evidence we see the evidence is that there is a new variety of services that are promoted in libraries now. It's not the traditional service that oriented to the borrowing of books, etc., but there are other services that we're going to discuss later on. And also there is a huge impact now of technology. Before, we had a huge progress done in terms of digitalization of libraries, but now it's not just digitalization alone anymore. There is a lot of technological advances like artificial intelligence that are really creating a new possibilities for achieving new objectives in libraries. And collaboration, talking about collaboration, there are two things that are in the evidence. One is the collaboration with the users, with the citizens, or with the researchers, or with the students, depending on the type of library. But another collaboration that is more and more important is the collaboration among libraries and also with other stakeholders, municipalities, universities, companies, or third sector, foundations, etc. So I think this is in the evidence. This is what we have been collecting, studying a lot of papers, books, and also even individual case studies that we are developing in the project now. So from there, we can also see what's going on in terms of barriers and challenges for collaboration in various. I'm not going to stop here because otherwise I would take too long. But we have also identified in the policy brief the collaboration practices. For example, we all know about these terms that are now very common in the librarian language, no? So smart libraries, citizen science, library labs, library 2.0, 3.0, innovation hubs, digital libraries, market space and learning space. All these things refer to practices that in one way or the other, they involve a certain way of collaboration. They are different because not all the concepts need the same. Of course, there are differences between all these concepts. But the idea is that collaboration is always requested in each of the concepts. No? And then we have this also in the policy brief. And then just toward the third part, which is wants to be really the core of the policy brief, is about the policy recommendation. In order to build the policy recommendation, we have studied the existing policy documents. For example, the Council of Europe recommendation on library legislation and policy in Europe, that is important key document for libraries. Or, of course, the European Union Work Plan for Culture, for example, for the coming years. And no less important is all the strategies and recommendations provided by library organizations such as LIBR, IFLA, or EBLITA, that also produce a lot of very interesting and suggestive collaborations in different aspects. Of course, this is together to the literature review, all the documents and articles and books that we have been studying as well. Based on all this work, we have identified several gaps. Of course, the first gap is the lack of attention, enough attention to the collaboration and co-creation. It's curious, but most of the documents, it's like they take for granted that collaboration is happening, or they don't pay attention at all to collaboration. Many documents even don't mention collaboration and co-creation at all. So I think there is a gap here also in terms of policy, how to promote collaboration and co-creation for service innovation in libraries. There are not much really on the policy documents on that. And this is what we want to give this value added with this policy brief. This is the main thing, the main value added that we want to provide to the library community with our policy briefs and with our project, the whole project. And then working on that, of course, the gap about different types of collaboration. It's not the same to collaborate with individual users, citizens, or to collaborate with researchers or with the students in a university library, or it's not the same with excluded or vulnerable communities for a municipal library, for example. And it's not the same to collaborate with the companies or to other stakeholders. So this maybe they may require, different groups may require different policies. Maybe this is something we want to work more. And the same appear with the kind of services there are in libraries. It's maybe not the same if we want to promote educational services in libraries, new educational services, or we want to promote business or community services or health services. So there's another gap here. And then we have a figure that summarizes the whole policy approach that we undertake in this policy brief. We divide all the policy issues in 4 categories: co-creation policy areas, services areas, thematic areas, and innovation policy areas. Of course, the 4 of them are interconnected, are interrelated. They are not like silos in different way. But they are presented in that way because we think that there are policy instruments and tools that are devoted to each of these categories. No, so for example, in terms of thematic areas, and here we go to the three main areas that we make research and working in the LibrarIN project. We have the digital transformation and ICT. So there are specific policy instruments for technology in libraries. Maybe also we could do the similar thing for living labs or for libraries of instruments for social entrepreneurship. So maybe this may require kind of cluster of policies that may relate to promotion of horizontal topic. Like on the other hand, on the left side of the figure, you have the services areas. So you have the individual services that we may like to promote some services and maybe not that much some other services. And of course, we have at the bottom the innovation policy areas, the traditional innovation policy areas, R&D policies or innovation policies that we may like to have libraries in the traditional policy areas, the traditional or updated or new policy areas, but the traditional instruments for the innovation policy area. And of course, at the top of this figure, we have the policies for co-creation. So specific policies for co-creation that maybe just be presenting in a different clustering way. So I'm not going to go into the detail of this because I will do it 1 minute per each of them later on. But I close here. I hope I fit into the 10 minutes. And then I give you the word to you, Marieke. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Luis. That was really interesting, and it was good to see the research performed and the understanding of collaboration as a strategic choice for libraries. So now, as you said, we will dive into the 4 areas in the 4 policy domains and the recommendations provided by LibrarIN. And we'll do that in each area. But first, I would like to ask our guest speakers to present themselves because they are a great group of library policymakers, library advocates, and innovators in libraries. And so I would really like to ask them to present themselves first. Can we start with Ilona Kish? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, thank you so much. Good morning. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I'm already really interested to follow. So my name is Ilona Kish. I'm based in Brussels, and I'm the director of an organisation called Public Libraries 2030, which I realise doesn't really say much about what we do. We were a project network that came out of the global funding for libraries from the Gates Foundation way back, and We really function as a kind of hub and innovator for the public library sector in Brussels. We work very closely with all of the library associations, do a lot of leading on EU advocacy and policy at EU level, and have a fantastic network of innovative libraries across Europe that we call the Lighthouse Libraries. So really happy to be here and have a couple of projects for which this work is really relevant. So, thank you.
Thank you, Leona. Thank you. We're thrilled to have you here. Katarina Kukaina, do you want to go next?
Yes, hello. Hello to everyone. I'm really honored to be a part of this roundtable, but also as a part of stakeholders panel of this project. I work in National Library of Latvia, one of the Baltic states. As you know, as director of the development department, and by education, I have a master's degree in special development planning and specialized in historic environment. But initial education is in communication sciences and European studies. I am a member of EBLIDA executive committee from 2021 as well. And in my daily work, I lead the elaboration of different strategies in the library field and policy documents, and also disaster risk management plan for the National Library of Latvia is a little bit different. Thank you.
Thank you, Katarina. Great to have you here. Robert, do you want to go next?
Thank you. Hello to everyone. My name is Robert Seitovirta, and I'm located in Helsinki, Finland. I'm head of unit at the Central Library Oodi, and before dwelling into the work in libraries, I was a PhD researcher and completed my thesis on Kafka, national languages and national identities. So I'm very thrilled and happy to be part of this roundtable and looking forward to the upcoming discussions.
Thank you, Robert. Welcome. Catarina Vaz Pinto, the floor is yours.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Catarina Vaz Pinto. I'm based in Lisbon. I'm currently a consultant for arts and culture. I'm a member of the supervisory board of the European Cultural Foundation too. I'm a cultural practitioner. I'm a cultural manager, but I've been into politics twice. First in the Portuguese government between 1997 and 2000, and more recently, I've been deputy mayor for culture in Lisbon for 12 years. And my main project, when I was in the government and in the city, I always worked with the libraries network, and even in the city, our main project was to develop the Lisbon Libraries Network. So I think it's in this role mainly that I was invited to be here, which I am very proud in this conversation. But I would also like to mention that the European Cultural Foundation has recently a very important and interesting project on libraries. It's called Europe Challenge. And different from this one, it's a very bottom-up project. It has already run for 3 years, when they support many small projects at libraries with this kind of new framework, what libraries can do for community, but I will talk about that later. And I think it's already also a very important, useful information tool for also this project, I would say.
Thank you. That is indeed very useful. Thank you, Catarina. Then last but not least, Giuliana De Francesco, can I ask you to present yourself briefly?
Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm very glad to participate in this policy debate. My name is Giuliana De Francesco. I am the policy officer assigned to this project by the Directorate General for Research and Innovation of the European Commission. I am a seconded national expert from the Italian Ministry of Culture, and in the GRTD I participate in the culture team within the unit responsible for democracy, equality and culture. And the culture team focuses in particular on Destination 2, sorry for this cryptic language that is used all across Horizon Europe, Destination 2, innovative research on cultural heritage and the culture and creative industries. from Cluster 2 of Horizon Europe, devoted to cultural creativity and inclusive societies. Why I'm mentioning that is because Horizon Europe mainly articulates around 3 pillars. The first one devoted to excellent science, the third one mainly to innovation, while the second pillar, where 6 clusters are included, addresses challenges, global challenges, societal challenges, and EU competitiveness. So that's the framework where we act. Thank you. Eager to participate in the rest.
Thank you, Juliana. Great to see also the context explained. I think that's very relevant for the discussion ahead. I see that there is someone asked if you can ask questions. Yes, we're thrilled with your questions. So can you please add them to the chat? Okay. So I see your first questions already, and we have time for one question, and then we move into the discussions. Luis, there's a question for you on how the gaps were identified exactly. So, and would you briefly want to comment on that before we dive into the recommendations?
Yes, well, very simple. I think we had a kind of working plan inside the LibrarIN project that the things we are doing that we have been presented by Hannah at the beginning of this session and all the work in the literature reviews, etc. So when we took the policy documents, we were just comparing what the policy documents included and what we are working on, and we have been on the basis of the project and also all the literature review, etc. So I'm comparing these two things, which are the policy documents. We identified those particular gaps, especially those gaps related to collaboration, that we found that there are many. So we are not so sure why the collaboration aspect is not that central in the existing policy documents and recommendations, but I think this is also the value added of the project, and this is also why surely the Commission was interested in some funding in the project, because maybe this can be useful also for other projects like the one that you are mentioning, your own project, or the rest of the speakers have mentioned. Very interesting project. I really would like to follow up with you. And we hope that we can also feed up with some of our ideas and results your very interesting projects.
Great, thanks. So now let's dive into we divided the policy domains up in 4 discussion moments. So Luis, can you take us through the first policy domain and LibrarIN recommendations? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So I will just spend only 1 minute sorry, I don't know, I'm trying to, yeah. So just the first policy area I want to have debate on is about the new services. These new services, perhaps this is too wordy. This one is better. We have identified 5 main types of services, of new or improved services that are provided by libraries nowadays. This comes from the literature review that have led us to see a lot of innovations in the area of reading education services, but of course, community services, for example, for people like young people or homeless people or people like vulnerable groups of people. Also in the areas of health and well-being, in the area of creativity, art, creativity, and design, all these kind of things as well. And finally, in the area of business finance services and entrepreneurship, for example. So we have identified in the literature review by academics, mostly by academics, some practitioners as well, but mostly academics like me. And so maybe sometimes we are a little bit behind what you do, the practitioners you do in the real world. So it's good also to test if these 5 categories are also aligned with the things you see, or maybe they are not. So this is what we want to test. This comes from a literature review work, and these are the 5 key services that in the first policy group.
Thank you, Luis. Ilona, can I ask you to comment on this policy domain and recommendations provided by LibrarIN and how you see that in your network?
Yeah, I was thinking about this just, in preparing, and I was kind of thinking, what is there to say other than great? Yes, absolutely. Of course, collaboration, is super important, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, what do I think what I'm interested in is how we get to I think making taxonomies of these things is useful and interesting, and I think that can help people get themselves organized. And I'm really curious to understand what efforts public libraries are making to understand their own practices and if this can be helpful for them. And we're working on a project, I won't say where, with a group of libraries that are very resistant to change, and for whom this innovation agenda is spoken to but not really embraced. And I've been thinking, for months now, what is the entry point to help them take on this change agenda? And it's really easy to pull out pictures of fabulous, sexy libraries from all over Europe that look this, that way and the other. And it's easy to talk about collaboration. And I'm wondering what at the different levels of management in libraries, the library management level itself, the regional, the municipal, where there are massive pockets of resistance, and why they don't want to adopt what seems to us very obvious. And I'm slightly wary of, in PL 2030, we talk a lot about these 65,000 public library spaces across the EU, which is a lot. And then thinking, how many of these libraries are in this innovation and change agenda and in a collaboration agenda? So I'm thinking of the next step. How do we make people aware of these tools? Design thinking toolkit for libraries has existed for a long time. The community-centered librarianship has grown and grown. There's been more and more kind of description, particularly in the Netherlands. That's a real sort of leading place for that. So there's no shortage of material now. The question is how to give public librarians the tools to embrace, not be afraid of a change agenda, understand what the value of that is, understand what they gain rather than lose from moving into these areas. And then perhaps two final thoughts. Of course, these 5 areas that you outline are not exclusive, but they're also a lot. And, there's definitely a kind of discussion in the field at the moment about how public libraries are supposed to do everything for everybody and change the world and solve all of these problems. And I think giving people tools to be selective around that, and always putting the community and the user at the center. There's no point in offering business services in an area where that really may not be necessary. But Gates did a fantastic project years ago with the Romanian libraries offering it was a series of registration services for the agricultural community, incredibly helpful and relevant for that community. That's what I think is really, really interesting there. And I would draw people's attention. I'll see if I can put the link in the chat. It's a really great library thinker in Finland, Tommi Laitio, who just wrote a piece called The Library Stool on Substack, which is fantastic, and talking about how we often talk about libraries. It's not just a place for books, but we don't often talk about what else there is and how we really define that. So I think this is really helpful in that regard. I'll put a link to it in the chat. Really, really thoughtful piece. So I think it's really great work. My question is how do we translate that into inspiring local authorities to understand that, it's a little bit about money, but it's mostly about mindset and yeah, and library community as well, maybe. I often find libraries want to do something and they don't know how, and they don't have an instinct to go and look. You know, it's my most often recommended. If you can get a small budget together and go and visit some libraries that are doing interesting work in another country, you will learn so much. You know, and that's you know, I'm thinking about bringing it down into the sort of practice area. So they're my thoughts. I'll dig out the Tommy Laito article for you, and I'm happy to add if there are questions as well. But thank you.
Thank you, Ilona. If you have a question for Ilona, please add it to the chat, and we'll try to address this within the time that we have. So Ilona, if I may recall, some of your main points is that how do we make libraries aware of the tools that are already out there to really foster co-creation for services in libraries? You also mentioned how do we translate that to the local policy? And third of all, you mentioned the knowledge exchange, which I think is very interesting. So we have, of course, also policymakers on the call, but I first wanted to ask Katarina Kokaina, how do you comment to both? Do you relate to what Ilona mentions, and how do you see the recommendation provided by LibrarIN, and how feasible did you see that, or do you have any example? Thanks.
Yes, maybe concentrate on an example gives us also the thoughts, and I'm happy to bring here also national library perspective, because the national libraries, this user-led or community-led development of services is maybe not so common thing, but increasingly entering in the strategic planning of national libraries work as well. And it means look at our readers as community firstly, much like public libraries do. And it's new habits of society force us to address our community more and more personally, each reader, to look at each reader's needs more personally. And I could say that it may come also from digital marketing environment as well, to which society, especially young generation, is used to, and it pushes us in this area. Yes, of course, there is a charismatic examples of, for example, our digital library, where all the national level memory institutions came for collaboration and sharing data and create this digital library. But I really would like to highlight one small example from my library through the Interreg project, libraries as urban knowledge hubs that we are doing together with Denmark, Germany, and Norway, and where the special spaces are piloting for special target groups, and ours is for young people, for youngsters, for students in national library, and to become with this space more open to them, not like this image of national libraries that's very severe, but to become more open and to listen to their needs and their wishes, what they would like to do in the library when they come in, and we involve them in the decision making of these innovations. And there's a methodological guidelines also, but engagement approaches such as collaborative methods is used in this project as co-creation, co-design, co-production, and also it will be at the end co-evaluation. And what does it mean? It means that we choose for our associate partners already in the beginning one NGO, that's a non-governmental organization of young architects. They are students and teachers together, and they are work with different designs and projects, and we involve them in these co-creation processes to lead workshops with the target groups of youngsters, to lead also co-design. All these young people came in the National Library and made the furniture from paper or from plastic, and what they see, how they would like to use these spaces. Even in the co-production project, the target group is there because they choose that they would like to see in the spaces possibility of 3D printing. So they are print some of the details of the furniture printing like 3D by 3D printing method, and they are doing themselves it. And when the space will be open, the opening is on 5th of November, this pilot space, we will invite them also for co-evaluation processes. Does it work and how it works? And from this example, I would like to say in this co-creation processes for library services, it's very, very important that the users that are involved in these innovations, that afterwards they recognize their ideas. They are, so they feel that they are heard, they are very involved, and it is the most important, of course. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. So if I summarize your main thoughts, just to catch them a little bit again, is to address that there's the need for libraries to address the personalized needs of their community. And especially you closed off with an important comment that they also need to recognize their own input. So they need to see that their ideas were really acknowledged by the library in their policies. Okay, thank you. Luis, I don't know if you want to comment on this and how you want to take these recommendations from the roundtable in further activities.
Yeah, thank you. No, very, very useful comment. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that really some points that will oblige us to reflect more on these things. I think that this idea that libraries are promoting new or improved services, not just based on the old-fashioned model, like, for many years collections were kind of, we were aiming at good collections. Now, as you are telling, is just more about the needs of people, the needs of communities, groups, this thing of even young people, for example. Young people are really pushing a lot to make innovations. So perhaps the differences here is not that much the type of the different areas of services. This is my main reflection, but also the different profiles of groups that we want to serve. This is maybe the main outcome I came, and also the idea of this thing about that also Ilona said about the changing of mindsets. The change of mindsets should be related to the needs of those groups. So it's not just we just flag the importance of changing libraries, but we have to flag the importance of the needs of the groups, and then how libraries can serve to that. I think this is also what's great. What I'm taking from your very good comments. Excellent. I don't know, Marieke, should I then move to the next one then?
Yeah, so I just want to thank Ilona Kish for joining us today. I know you really made an effort in being here with us, but now you have to run off to catch a plane. So
I do. That's
you.
really crazy. And I just wanted to remind everybody of the great comment from David Lankers that it's about connections, not collections, which is a really great one to. And if you look on his website, he has a long explanation of the context of that and what it means. And I think that's always my go-to. Have a great. I'm really sorry I can't stay for the rest, but have a great seminar. Really excellent work.
Thank you very much, Ilona. Have safe travels. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
So yes, Luis, let's go on with the second area.
Yeah. Wait a second. Well, the second area it's about the thematic area that we, in this case, this is not coming from the literature review, from the evidence. This comes from our own organization of the LibrarIN project, as a project, as an EU project that we divide ourselves in three main categories that should be horizontal to all kinds of services. So the first one is the technology, of course, the digitalization, artificial intelligence, digital tools. So this is the first obvious thing, the first common area that affect all kinds of services in a library. The second one is this thing of networking, that now this connections aspect that Ilona was saying before, this connections it means also networks and connections. So social entrepreneurship, partnerships, so new groups of people doing things together. All these things are really another area of to promote policies at horizontal level. And the third one is the living labs, because many libraries already have a living lab. Others are promoting living labs. Others, they don't have living labs, but they themselves are conceived as a living lab. So the library as a living lab. So this thing of living labs, or to design, to make interactions possible, etc., the space as a living lab. So these three areas, we are making research on them, and these are the areas we would like to test with you. If these three areas are well planned or well designed, or they are really aligned with the things you see in the library world, or there is something missing here, or something that should be reformulated. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. I want to ask Robert Saitovirta from OD Library to comment on this from your experience. How do you see this recommendation on the thematic areas for collaboration in libraries?
Thank you, Marieke. I think from the perspective of Audi, it's necessary to make a few general observations at first. So when we talk about Audi, it relates to other public libraries in Finland in a way that we are actually, from our mission, an innovation library. So one of our main goals is to try and develop library services all the time, basically on a continuing basis, and then to reflect these, what we have learned, and then to implement them in other public libraries if they have been seen as necessary or good evolutions, so to say. And another general observation I would like to point out, since I'm not aware how widespread this is actually in the 65,000 libraries we have in the EU, but here in Audi we have a working method of inside the work community of community self-management. Now, to be precise, it means that we have self-managing teams. And why I'm pointing this out is that I think it's important that you consider this as a possible way of actually organizing your internal work community when also collaborating with the community outside of the library, because these two reflect on each other. So here in Audi, we have a working community that actually gets to vote on a weekly basis about if we want to make changes, implement changes. On a managerial level, we still carry out the responsibility for budget, for our workers, etc. But basically, in the end, our 70 workers here at Audi are the ones together with the other community outside of the library, pointing into which direction we should go and evolve. Now, the citizen involvement, as Ilona Kish and Katrina Kukainen pointed out, is, in my opinion, number one when collaborating in small-scale project and in bigger projects. What does it mean? One thing that is important in the aspect from Audi is that we have a lucky situation where we get a lot of people actually coming to us and asking to collaborate, innovate, work together. So we don't need to make open calls that often, but open calls are a very good way to have partnerships, to have special program in your library. But when you want to select a partner with whom you want to collaborate, whether you're a big scale library or a small scale municipal library, and you scout your surroundings looking for the perfect partnership and collaboration methods, I think something that you definitely need to look into from the beginning is that you share similar values and you share similar working methods. So this is something that that defines actually how the collaboration is going to work out, because we come from different work communities, all of us. It's even though it's quite simple an idea, it's actually something that very much defines the outcome. So after pointing out that the community inside the work community, self-management, the citizen involvement, and the values and working methods should be the same, I think if someone from the community reaches out to your library, whether it be in one of these thematic areas or maybe even something completely else, what small libraries and medium-sized libraries, sometimes also large libraries confront is the issue with money, but that's not always the point. What do you have? What can you offer as a library? You can say we don't have money, we don't have the funding. What we do have is we have the space, we have professional staff, we have the capability of helping you organize this, and let's look into it together. So it's important to keep in mind that not always money is the first thing you need to actually offer or what you need in collaborations. And what we like to do is, if we get contacted by somebody who wants to organize something with Audi or partner up with us, if we can't actually give what they would like to have, we aim to give them at least something, a little bit, because it's an important part that we want to actually hear everyone out, each and everyone.
Thank you, Robert. So I was very interested in the community of self-management, the self-management community. I think that's an excellent activity in this context. Also, you mentioned citizen engagement, both in small and large projects, and how important that is. And then you closed off with mentioning that the budget is maybe it can restrict your activity, but it's not all defining in a way. From another perspective, from a national library perspective, Katarina Kukainen, how do you see this recommendation? Is this adoptable, or do you have some examples from thematic areas?
Yes, thank you. Really great observations by Robert, but I will add another angle, and maybe not from some national library, but more, or maybe it's public library. I really want to highlight the libraries as collaboration spaces and collaboration spaces for the local government. So this cooperation with local government and community, and library could be this mediator for this collaboration. In which sense, you could ask? We know from statistical data that libraries as institutions enjoy really the public trust. What it means? It means that in this way, the community will be ready to express their opinions, feel safe to express their opinions, because libraries of the freedom of expression as well. And they could freely express their thoughts. And it's really important in different special development planning processes for the local government could be because they need to involve society, and they are seeking for society's opinion. And libraries could help in this way at this collaboration spaces for that. And librarians like mediators and moderators, and also libraries as meeting places for this local government and community could be. It could also be like in conservation of cultural heritage of the community, for example, or enhancing the sense of local identity. It's very, very important as well. But library could serve also like place also for resources, because libraries are making this local history research, and they could also bring the materials on the table as well. And yes, it's very helpful for city development in the coherence with community needs. I always have this excellent, marvelous example in mind from one of the Lisbon library, public library, Biblioteca de Marvila. They participated in EU project and collected the community stories, materials, photographs, narratives about local history and development of their quarters, and make it interactive. And now it serves for the local community and for local government to discuss the possible developments in the city, in the quarter, and look how it goes with identity of Carter and identity of the city part, and also how important it is for the local communities. So I think this cooperation as well and libraries' role in that is very important. And it goes very good hand in hand with, for example, such a EU policy like New Bauhaus movement and European Green Deal as well. So we can bring these policies as well in such a cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Katarina. You really mentioned something very important, which is public trust. And you place the library in as a facilitator in the bigger context by offering collaboration spaces with local governments. Thank you for this. I invite all the speakers to have a look at the chat and read the question of Giuseppe Vitiello. We will come back to this later, because I first would like to ask Luis Rubalcaba if you have a few closing remarks on this section, and then we dive into the third policy domain.
Well, thank you. Yes. Well, thank you very much, really, for all these comments. I think, yeah, I also would like to point out that for me, what's this similar or aligned comments between Robert and Katrina on the first one. Robert said about the sharing similar values and working methods as the core pillar for all activities happening in ODI that, as I said, we visited just a few months ago. It was a great experience, really, and now we are going to be back, by the way, in a few days for a conference. We are going to present some results in Helsinki again. I mean, I think really this is something that also together to the trust that also you were mentioning, Katrina, I think in order want to promote networks, want to promote connections, and all these things, really trust is extremely important. Even also, it's also important for the technology, for this aspect of technology, that because if we want to also to promote artificial intelligence, here there is a trust issue, a huge issue behind the trust in AI. But this is more technological part, but also in the kind of other operations we do in libraries, both at the managerial level or even with the interaction with the citizens. Trust is essential, and if we don't want to build collections but connections, as I will say before, so this thing of sharing values, working methods, and trust is the most important thing. How to do this? How to facilitate this? Because probably this is not something we can build from libraries. It's not just supply led. Should be something coming from the bottom, coming from demand, from users, that we may just facilitate and not create. This is my reflection based on your very good comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. Let's dive into the third policy domain.
Yeah, let me see. Well, the third policy domain is about the cross-cutting co-creation areas. So areas that these are the areas that are included, some of them in the key policy documents, like the Commission policy documents. So the source of this is easier to find it, because you can find this kind of cross-cutting areas in many policy documents affecting libraries. So, but the idea is how to use these cross-cutting policy areas that are already existing in many documents to have all these topics we are discussing in the agendas. Now, how to transform this traditional cross-cutting policy area. This one, for example, so the strategy from collaboration. Okay, then we can link the collaboration thing with the idea of all transaction cost. For example, how to discover which is the cost of creating this collaboration, these connections, because there is a cost. We want to invest to create this connection or to generate trust or share common values. As we said before, we need something there. We can also make stakeholders' participation easier. And here we have the issue of how to integrate vulnerable groups in co-creation activities, for example. Some of them are maybe active, but some of them are not active at all. I would like to have them on board. So the ensure organizational support, here the cultural change is matters. Also the benchmarking managerial tools promoting innovation across Europe. How can we really promote a change of best practices and best examples on top of what we are trying to do in the project, no? But for example, in order to identify trends in library services. But here it's true that there's another area of work. And finally, this monitoring and evaluation framework that is normally kind of typical recommendation in policy documents, but which kind of indicators and tools for monitoring what's going on here in terms of collaboration, etc. What extent this could be promoted as well. So these are the cross-cutting policy areas related to co-creation and to the things we want to discuss here.
Thank you, Luis. Juliana, can I ask you, from your point of view on a European level for these recommendations?
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's not totally obvious to involve the policy officer. I must confess that I took over this responsibility only recently, but I'm very enthusiastic about this project because it highlights the role of libraries. For us, it's possibly obvious that libraries play a crucial societal role. Their role is essential for social inclusion, but also for social innovation, as you point out, for a social innovation that meets social needs. Because as you already said, libraries enjoy trust among citizens and reach out to citizens where they live, in the neighborhoods even. And that's why their role is essential and powerful, but often overlooked. So that's why I would like to commend the focus of this project. Libraries and library networks are a sort of infrastructure at the core of social fabric. But as highlighted in the documents you quote in your papers, they are also infrastructures for sustainable development. They play a key role in democratic societies through digital literacy, media literacy, involving citizens in discussions, for example, about AI. AI is not only a tool that we should be able to use competently. AI is a general transformation in society, and cultural institutions and libraries in the first place can meaningfully involve citizens in the debate on AI developments. But libraries could also contribute to what might seem more distant from their mission, which is promoting European values, first of all, cultural and linguistic diversity, for example, and they could contribute to the future policy priorities of the EU. You will all know that the new commission is about to take office and that there are political priorities already published by the candidate president of the commission, and there are mission letters to candidate commissioners that include also the suggestions provided by the so-called Draghi report on Europe's future competitiveness. This report emphasizes innovation, technological advancement, and enhancing competitive capabilities in Europe, and while keeping social inclusion and societal cohesion. And there is hardly something where libraries could not contribute through facilitating education and skills development, boosting digital and technological inclusion, supporting innovation and research, promoting community engagement and co-creation. In your outline of the 3 thematic areas, you highlight the possibility that libraries provide entrepreneurial support to startups, and startups are emphasized as one of the keys for enhancing European competitiveness. And startups in the creative sectors are those that mostly struggle to scale up. So if there was a way to involve libraries and library networks in this role without missing, of course, their mission, without, moving away from their primary mission, this would be excellent. This would be ideal. On the text, I have a small observation about the digital transformation. I noticed that more and more the talk is about responsible digital transformation, meaning when we digitize content, we should have in mind the objectives to be achieved and proceed thoughtfully, not only ethically, of course, because cultural institutions usually manage ethics well and ensure that digital transition respects and preserves cultural values and heritage. But now it's absolutely needed that whenever we consider the costs of our digitization project and our digital transformation, we consider our carbon footprint as part of the costs for society. And libraries are better off than other sectors. But yes, I think now it's absolutely essential to point out this need for going about responsibly, also with digital transformation, that digitization should be related to the goals to be achieved. Another aspect that came to my mind while going through the third part, the cross-cutting co-creation policy areas, this it's not up to me to comment on the methodology or the overall structure, but what I would find useful if I was a library or a library network would be examples. Example that enable really to consider perspectives that are not already in the own horizon, and to better understand what is meant with these suggestions. So examples of paths to social innovation, best practices, metrics, examples of innovation ecosystems for libraries, example of successful collaborations that were possibly not so obvious because libraries used to collaborate with several stakeholders, first and foremost public authorities, but maybe you have at hand examples of successful collaborations that could stimulate reflection among libraries. If I can add something still about the policy framework, may I?
You may. I do have to ask you to wrap it up so that we can also address.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, one thing is sometimes when the cultural sectors moves in one direction, progress is made. There is currently an expert group that is of member states supported by the Commission that is dealing with strengthening the roles of libraries as gateways and transmitters of cultural works. This is the part of the priority in the work plan for culture that you highlight in your briefs. And this group will produce a report that will inform policies at national and local level. And this is the outcome of a joint effort from EBLIDA, the Council of Europe, the Cultural Affairs Committee, all the cultural sector, the Urban Agenda for the EU, achieved that at EU level. A reflection on libraries was ongoing. And there are other reports from previous OMC groups that I will share with you because I don't mention them now because I think they might be useful for your future endeavors. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Juliana. Thanks a lot for all these reflections, because I think indeed the policy basis that you're mentioning is highly relevant for the project, also to build on what's already done and proceed from there. Thank you for your comment on useful examples. This is also something that the LibrarIN project will work towards too. We aim to provide a What Works database in the third year of this project. And if I look at, I really noticed one really amazing remark that the library's role is very powerful, but often overlooked. And I think all your comments really point to that and make an effort in changing this. So you see a lot of roles apart from its classic role. You see a lot of other roles, complementary roles. For libraries in the public debate. So we are a little bit pressed for time, so I would like to ask Katarina Vos-Pinta to comment on this from your perspective, more on a national level, and maybe also from regional level from the Lisbon municipality. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think my main experience was really at the city level, and I think I would comment on all what has been said until now, because even if we have different parts of the recommendation, I think for me the most important thing is that there is a growing recognition about the rolling of libraries. It's very different all around Europe. You have countries like the Nordic countries where libraries are very developed and very booming, and there are other places that very different ones that facing a lot of financial problems, survival problems. In the UK, in recent years, 800 libraries closed, so you know it's a very fearing side. But I would say that the most important thing when we talk about policy, it's to think that librarians are public servants, and that to see librarians as a public libraries as a public infrastructures and a tool of cultural policy. And this is what is lacking, is the public policy recognition of the role, I would say, in most of the places, of the role of libraries that you have all around. You have experience not only in Europe but also in South America, for instance. When we design our library network in Lisbon, and the library, Marvila Library that Katrina talked about, it was very much our main models were not only Arus, but the Medellin network of libraries. And Medellin was a city in Colombia that changed completely its development approach through culture and education, and mainly through the libraries. And so I think there is, on the libraries sector and community, everybody understands and understands their needs and the challenge they face, but they are not able to fulfill the challenge, mainly because there is not enough political recognition, and with that comes money and investment. And what investment has meant in the last decades: first, it has meant investment in digital modernization, which is a dimension of innovation. But as most of people here said, the most important innovation has been social innovation, and this completely change on putting people at the center of the library network. So people and community, and it was already our leitmotif when we designed the network for Lisbon Library. It's public people make the library. And so with all the new libraries that we created, we started with having focus group. What is this community? What are their needs? What are they? It's an urban. It's a power neighborhood. It's a more urban neighborhood. So you need to really ask the people what do they need and what does it mean to have this kind of public place there. And I would say that the gaps that Luis Rubalcaba talked, the gaps that you mentioned for me are more operational gap, because the most important gap is a political one, and is the recognition of what does it mean, what is the value of the library as a main cultural policy tool. So for me, this is the main gap, and from then I would draw all the other consequences. And the other thing is also, for me, of course, it's not only a question what we from this European Foundation project, and that also had a research on what were the main tensions or needs of the libraries. Most of the people talk about financial pressure. They don't have enough money. But I would say that for me, it's not only about the money that we need. It's mainly to train the librarians, those who are skeptic about this new environment. It's to have more librarians, because you need more librarians. You have to have more staff at libraries, not only more librarians. For instance, in my country, it's really a key question. In Mao City, we cannot open on weekends, and we cannot open. We have to close at 6 o'clock, and we should be open until 10 o'clock in the evening or something like some American libraries. Seattle Library is open until 11 o'clock, and it's open all the day. So you need more people to be open many days. And we need diversified people to fulfill all the tasks that people. So libraries has to be multidisciplinary. It have to have multidisciplinary teams. So you need the money for that, because then for the collaboration itself, it's like many people here say, it's not that much money that you need. You can do it with different. It depends on the area you work for. If you are a tiny rural area, you don't need much. If you work in the city and you want to have kind of digital infrastructure, of course, for young people to develop video games and stuff like that, of course you need much more money. But it's a very also different scale. And I would say you have to invest in people in the community, but also in the librarian community, and to have training for those that, as I said, for those who are still skeptical or they are averse to change. You need training for them, because in the end, libraries are getting more and more relevant. I think also the dimension of the civic and democratic function role of libraries is not enough stressed in the documents that you share, because maybe this is now the main role as community centers. Libraries are safe places, are democratic places, are open spaces. You live all over the world, and in Europe, in multicultural societies, and one of the main risks and problems is how do you deal with the other? How do you foster these intercultural connections? So this is really, I think, one of the key roles now for libraries and librarians. And also another that I think people need meeting places, need physical meeting places. After the pandemic, this became much more evident. So this thing to link the analog with the digital and the meeting, just the possibility of having places for people to meet. It's very, very important to discuss, to read newspaper, to have a meeting, in order to create an art piece, a performance, or a new business, whatever. And also for me nowadays, it became also again very crucial how you relate the traditional reading and the traditional book with the digital literacy, because what we've seen also very, very quickly and very fast. And now there is also a whole question about book schools that you have to learn through reading, that reading develops a kind of intelligent and critical thinking that digital reading and digital literacy doesn't play. And I think, again, libraries nowadays could have a very important role in connecting literature and reading, traditional reading, with all these new forms of literacy, because it's that gives you critical thinking, sense of place, sense of the world, sense of community. And most of all, this is what we're talking about. It's a kind of the libraries as a tool for human development, for individual flourishment and collective flourishment. This, for me, it's the main role of libraries nowadays.
Thank you, Katarina. Thank you a lot. So, what if I look at your comments? There's a lack of policy recognition. There is a need for social innovation, and you see libraries as really key actors in the as a democratic spaces. Now, we are obviously pressed for time, but I did want to give you this space to comment, because we really value your comments on the further work and the further policy recommendations of LibrarIN. I see in the chat that Juliana, you already responded to a question made by Giuseppe Vitiello. I invite also the other speakers to provide a comment on the question of Giuseppe Vitiello on regional differences. But I do want to ask Louise, there is a fourth policy area, which I invite everyone to read the policy brief, because we won't have time to do that in the last 4 minutes. I want to ask participants to respond to a poll that my colleague Marta Andukas will launch. So, bearing in mind that you've learned about 3 of the policy recommendations, to understand how we have a few questions for them, for you, on their feasibility for adoption, the challenges that you see. So please take your time, a few seconds to respond to these. And then after that, I would like to ask every speaker to give me a 1-sentence key takeaway of what we discussed today. That would be really useful as a take-home message.
Yeah.
So, Marta, is there a way that we can see? Well, while we perform the poll, Luis, I want to invite you first for your key takeaways.
Well, thank you very much. No, very, very interesting presentations from your side, all the speakers really in this session. The last 2 comments, the last 2 interventions, Juliana and Caterina, I really like, and also the ones from Giuseppe and from Milena on the chat in particular, are very, very useful, all of them. I think that this idea of having libraries as a door also to Europe, not just because in the past libraries were also a place to also not to go other through books, to go different places all over the world. Now is, I think, this idea of sharing European values through libraries and European activities and European things. I really like this idea. And it's not that much about digital literacy that you mentioned. That it's key, it's essential. But I would say that also there is a need of European literacy as well, that maybe libraries can also serve in this in the direction that you mentioned. And perhaps this is a way in which also social innovation, the local social innovation, should be promoted as well in connection to other kind of networks all over the world, and in particular all over Europe. So social innovation as a key aspect. And I really agree with all the comments you have done in all this session. And really, I thank you for everything. Of course, we couldn't have the time to do with everything. I would also like to ask a question from Milena, saying, why not artificial intelligence or reference services not so much in the policy you believe? Well, this is so new. This is just a few months that having all the artificial intelligence thing that we didn't find any of this in the literature or in the document. So, but it's true. We have to really to catch up with all these new things that are happening now in the world, and we hope to can do this with you. In the coming 1 year we have of the project, no? And also would like to finalize and territorial aspect very important. Giuseppe, I really like very much this idea of libraries having a role also for social inclusion, no? And structural funds and fighting inequalities, etc. I really would like also to mention that we are organizing in Alcalá, my university, as LibrarIN, the consortium. We are organizing a final conference in May, so 21st, 22nd, 23rd of May. We're organizing a final conference with a track for practitioners, policymakers, and academics. We'll be there to discuss, to have interactions. It's open to everyone, this final conference. You are more than welcome to come to join us as well in that. Also, but before that, we have other occasions to interact with you as well. So I stop here and thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask every speaker to give me 2 words that you want to highlight from this discussion? And then we close off because everyone needs to. Robert. 2 words, please.
This is 4 words, 5 words. Public
Good.
support, political support.
Thank you.
I hope this is self-explanatory.
Katrina Kokaina.
Yes, thank you. I think very important was the mention about librarians themselves, and Ilona already quoted today David Lankas, but he has other sentence, great libraries comes from great librarians. So it's very important, the capacity of librarians themselves as well in new challenges.
Thank you. Katrina Vaz-Pinto, 4 words, please.
Libraries as the most important democratic space.
Thank you. Juliana, 4 words, please.
Well, in relation to what already said, I would say relevance and visibility.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Marta, can you say something about the poll in 1 sentence? Oh, excellent. So on a scale from 1 to 5, how applicable do you see the recommendations presented? Most of you find it rather complex still, but doable. And in a few words, what do you see as a challenge to recommended presentations? So we have a few answers, and we'll communicate on that in the blog post that we will be sharing later on with the slides and the recordings. So thank you everyone for joining us, and keep an eye on our communications on the final conference. We really hope to see you there. Thank you to all the speakers of today. Really great to have you here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.